Alexis, welcome back to another episode of the All About the Metaverse podcast.
Hi, Chris. Thank you so much for having me. Very delighted to, start kicking again, I guess. So let's kick it right into the thick of it. You already have lined up a couple of discussions, so let's go.
I have, yeah, and I think again, like just so that everyone knows, I do consider you a co-host, not a sidekick. This
Oh,
isn't
I'm happy
Batman
to
and
start
Robin.
kicking. As you know, exactly. As long as you don't, beach slap me, like like that meme of Batman's
It is the
back
metaverse.
slapping
Slap.
Rob. Slap. Boink. All right.
So we'll
Well,
try
we're
not to do
delighted to
that,
be the
but that's
co-host.
I'm definitely going to drop that meme in now and put my name and your name later on. Right, okay.
Sounds
So
good.
there is three really big things that I think that we should talk about today. One of them being last week, 10 days ago, Meta announced their financial results. And this is a huge one because whether we like it or not, Meta is a big player in the metaverse. Lots of people are talking about them as being they're never going to make the metaverse. They've lost so much money and look at what they created and blah, 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 blah. I think there's a lot to be said for that. But I wanted to start with what are your thoughts? So this quarter, they've reported that they lost 4 billion in the reality labs section of the business, which is what's focused on making this metaverse and the VR side of things. And that's after losing 14 billion last year. So in a quarter, this sounds like they're not easing up in terms of their investment. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think we had a quick discussion before, and you were very right when you mentioned like you're such a large company doing such investments to them, it's peanuts. And if you were to keep growing at a staggering rate as they used to be growing, then you need to venture on some new tech. Okay, so it's very clear that they chose which horse they want to bet in, and the horse seems to be okay. Well, metaverse seems to be definitely one. Even if right now it's a loss, maybe on the long run it's going to be a win. Let's see. I don't see them going into AI quite yet, or at least they haven't made it very clear. I find it quite idealistic. It's either the fallacy of sunken cost going on here, or they really have something very big in the pipe that nobody's aware. Because even though, okay, nobody gives a shit if you lose $4 billion, but it's still a big number, even by meta standards.
Yeah, I think that's the big one that this is a bit of a crazy kind of concept, right? I run a small business. When you start talking in things like we lost 4 billion, but it's okay, like we'll be okay, and you think how is it going to be okay? But I do think it's important to note that Meta, got to keep remembering that Meta
Yeah.
didn't lose 4 billion in that quarter, and this is what's really interesting. Even with that 4 billion loss for Reality Labs, Meta overall, I think the total profit was about 5.7 billion for the quarter. So they're still making good amounts of money, right? The only people that probably want them to make more money is the shareholders, especially the big ones that are saying, oi, cut costs, reduce the numbers, make more profit. So bearing in mind they've now laid off 13,000, maybe more people so
Yeah.
far. This is making them a profitable company, and that's including, I'm guessing, having to pay out all sorts of redundancies and packages to lay people off, etc. So they're still making real money.
I think we are not giving them a break enough because, again, the technology that they are putting forward, this is high tech. This is high level technology that needs to be, pleasantly accepted by the masses. And in order to do that, you need to have, a nice, smooth tech that doesn't bugs, that doesn't make you dizzy, that it's, friendly, that has a real purpose. And you don't build that in a year. I mean, we are all being, big babies here. Like, hey, come on, I want everything now. All right. And again, we can't steer a company just to please investors. Investors have to see as well what's coming on the long term. Again, I might be biased here, but and we said that before on that podcast. The next iteration of the web, okay, the next internet, it's going to be happening in a digital form, and in immersive digital form, where it's mixed reality, where it's like metaverse, like deep into the metaverse. I don't know, but it looks that it will take a little while to get it right. We just need to give it time for sure.
It's an interesting one because I think what we were talking about just before we hit the record button as well. I think it's the All In podcast with Jason Calacanis, Chamath, Sachs, somebody else, can't remember the guy's name now, sorry. But they were talking about it in the sense that these big companies that have all been kind of announcing their numbers, the financials for the first quarter, And what they're realizing is that these companies aren't doing 100x growth, and there's not a scope for them to do 100x growth. They're no longer big growth companies. So for me, one of the things about this kind of play is this potentially could be a 10x growth in the future. If it works out and if it all goes well, it could be. I'm not saying it will be, but it could be. If this is the next version, and like you say, the next iteration of the internet, and it's this virtual world and everything else, there's a statistic that made me my mind boggled from this. But as part of what Meta have done, they're kind of creating the Meta sign-in rather than Facebook, rather than Instagram, etc. So you've got this Meta sign-in, but they've also allowed people to create their own Meta avatars. And so far, they announced the other day that there's been over 1 billion Meta avatars created.
Oh, wow.
Now, this is whilst there is nobody using the metaverse, but 1 billion people have created a digital avatar just because they could.
Yeah, well, you know what? Maybe if you want to do a business that does 100x, maybe you should start to do like a Pepe token rather than, like building a ginormous a ginormous company that will onboard tens of billions. I mean, when I say tens of billions, I mean, when I say tens of billions is like, users, right? Not only users, but users, right? Could be businesses, could be people. And again, you definitely have like more than 10 billion internet pages, right? So it will take a while.
I'm going to leave Pepe's token to everybody else. Do your own research. This is not financial advice.
Oh,
Please
no,
read the
hell,
fine
absolutely
print.
not. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Buy Pepe token.
Don't buy Pepe token. Don't buy anything based on what we say. Never buy anything based on what we say.
Yeah, I will never ask your money.
Unless you want to buy a black t-shirt, which will be available soon in every metaverse.
Yeah, and on the NFT standard 5606, yeah, right. Let's not forget.
Absolutely.
On
That's the way.
absolutely all metaverses, yeah. Fantastic.
Well, listen, let's jump into the second topic. I don't know if if everyone else has seen this yet, or maybe it's just because we're super geeky in this space and we like this, but YouGov released a report the other day about the metaverse and how people are looking at this. So for people who don't know, YouGov is a internet research, marketing research company. They're based out of the UK, I believe, but I think they also now work across the globe. They put together a big ass report. Like, it's got lots and lots of pages with lots and lots of statistics. But if you want to read that, we'll leave a link in the link in the show notes below.
Yep.
But I think one of the really key things was, I just want to set the stage for this before anyone starts talking about it. But when surveying nationally representative UK and US audiences, YouGov defined the metaverse as a virtual world where you can create an electronic version of yourself and then take part in activities on your devices and associated equipment. So it's really specific language, but this is what they used to set the tone for what they were actually doing as part of this market research. Now, here's what I found really interesting. More than half of all the people that they asked had heard of the metaverse now. So this has now become more people.
That's good.
More
Okay.
people know. Yeah, this is huge, right?
Well, there was another report I saw that in Ireland, actually, not so many people heard about the term metaverse. So, again, our Irish friends get up to speed. Yeah.
Well, listen, I mean, like, looking at those numbers, if you say 57 to 55% of people actually have said that they have heard of this is already, for me anyway, it's a big thing. Like, nobody really knows what it is. Nobody knows exactly what it will be. Lots of people have very different definitions of that. But I think what's really interesting is that actually, as you keep reading the report, some of the other data suggests that, I think this was the one that I really liked as well, that the metaverse is currently expected to manifest as an improved and extended version of virtual reality. That's how people see it, or that's what people are expecting this to potentially be. And I think that's a really important one, because we've talked about this before as well, and we've crossed paths on this topic. What is the metaverse? Is it accessible through your phone? Is it accessible through Chrome browser on your computer? Is it accessible through AR, VR headsets? What is that kind of development? What does that development look like? But it seems like actually the majority of people that are talking about knowing about it or understanding what it is potentially, they're seeing it as being a VR thing, a VR play. What's your thoughts?
Well, VR, it's coming. So now what people perceive, it's obviously quite far away from what the reality is going to be. Another thing that's going to happen quite quickly, and people might not be ready for it. And I'm saying it here on that podcast viewed by billions of people. I think that Web4 is in the cusp of being created when you have, metaverse, blockchain, AI all coming together, and thus that's going to be Web4. So what it creates here is that the expectation of people is only on a certain level, which it's not quite deep enough, I would say. The surprise that we're going to get is going to be really something that is going to be close to being plugged into the matrix. Now, I think it's quite nice that more people, figuring out what the metaverse is. But it seems that the expectations are misaligned with what is being delivered. Okay, and it's going to be even more so. I think what it's going to become, it's going to be even more than what people think it's going to be. Now, of course, we're seeing that Apple and and who else has unveiled, some new tech. I think was you were saying Microsoft, right?
So
Right?
yeah, so this is the news that came out this week, which Microsoft have apparently filed a
Yeah.
patent for brand new eye tracking software.
So they're all
So
coming out, right? So all these things are
they're
coming
doing
out.
they're doing a play for sure, yeah. And I think this is so really interestingly. So if you look at these numbers, right, we might come back to the YouGov report because I might have some other statistics. But if you talk about this idea of like the AR, VR, the screen-based metaverses, how does that actually play out? So I think it's interesting to see that YouGov, for most people in their minds, they still picture this probably influenced by films, the things like Ready Player One. They still see this as being a VR. You're talking about it as like you go into the matrix and you're really engrossed in that. So PlayStation created or released, sorry, last month, I think about a month ago, the VR2, their second generation headset for VR. It has been mind-bogglingly well received by the community, like in terms
Well,
of what people have said about it. The experience has been fantastic, connected to something like a PS5, obviously just gives you that next generation of AAA experiences that can be built. But what I thought was really interesting about it is they've said, I think the figures that they've released officially are they sold between 270 and 300,000 units in basically a month.
did you get
Now,
yours?
VR, sorry?
Did you get yours?
I haven't, no, I can't afford a
No.
PlayStation 5. Please sponsor this podcast to help us get a
Please,
PS5.
yeah, I want one too. Yeah, for sure.
The reality of this is though, like it took them 5 months to sell just under 1 million units with the very first VR headset. If they've managed to hit like a third of that in just over a month, like this is crazy numbers in terms of how this is actually ramping up. And I still believe that the PlayStation 5 is probably not as integrated everywhere as it is, right? There's a generation of people a bit like me that have a PS4, haven't upgraded. I don't get enough time to play games as much as I'd like to, so I haven't got into it for the next generation.
So wait a minute. So now it's going to be the competition between again Microsoft and Sony. Who's going to get the very best tech, like maybe eye censored? Yeah. Well, wait a minute.
Well, this is
Didn't
the
Stephen Hawking came up with that already? I mean, or Intel actually came up with that already. Stephen Hawking was actually living in the metaverse already. How
well,
about that?
like, look, put it this way: if Microsoft come after this market right now, I think this is huge, right? Like Microsoft have just had a bit of a blow. Their Activision deal that they wanted to put through, the UK regulators have said they can't. So the UK really stifling that. I'm based in the UK for anyone listening, so this is a big slap that's the only country that's really pushed against this. So look, if Microsoft are coming after this market, it's for a reason. I don't believe that all of these players and all of these very smart people at these very big companies that have been integral to the way that we've lived our lives online, gaming. Microsoft, I mean, is just mind boggling. Imagine what they've done with ChatGPT and their investment in OpenAI in just such a short period of time. If these guys are doubling down on VR, if these guys are doubling down on that experiential kind of way of interacting, the headset, the technology, how you can be within that environment, there's got to be something more to it, right? Like, I think we might have a second season in us.
Well, yeah. Well, well. Listen. First and foremost, I'm looking forward to what Apple is going to do. For sure, Microsoft is a huge machine. Is a huge. I mean, it's a huge enterprise, right? So they're going to come up with something very cool, unlike Skype. But I'm more looking forward to see what Apple is going to come out because they announced it's going to come out in September, isn't it?
I don't
I think
know how official all of this is, and knowing Apple, and I'm a big Apple fanboy, like I basically have only owned a PC to be able to game and do a few things here and there, but outside of that, everything I use for work is my MacBook Pro, my iPhone, like everything. I 100% love what Apple does.
Sorry, this
However,
podcast is not being sponsored. So easy, easy. Crazy.
Apple, please sponsor us. The reality of it is though, like they have had some issues when it comes to releasing quite big banging announcements, and they've made some like, we're going to make this product that sounds great, so one of their wireless charging pads was going to be fantastic, one thing or another, and then yeah, it's not out quite yet, we'll have to push that a bit further down the line. And currently I think Apple's having a bit of a transitionary phase as well, since they went into their own silicon chips. It's been really interesting to see this. The average person is no longer upgrading, because the difference between their first M1, which blew people's minds, is what I use. It's incredible. But then to transition to an M2 for a marginal difference hasn't shown people enough to actually make them do it. And I think this is becoming a thing for them as well. So maybe the AI headset is the next phase. But I think as well, AI, I know you keep telling me this isn't the AI podcast, but the AI game is also going to play huge.
We need to add it. Yeah, we need to add some sprinkles of AI in that podcast. I think this technology, it's now clear that it's going to continue, flourishing and adding some salt and pepper to whatever tech is out there already, and definitely is going to be a part of the metaverse as well. Just in terms of creating those beautifully colored and sensor rich environments, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I think, again, like just to sort of remember this as well, Apple make incredibly nice, let's call them sexy products, right? They are.
Yeah, they do.
But when we talk about Microsoft, we've got to remember as well, it's not about the tech or the lack of tech that they make in that sense. It's actually about the gaming people. There's a huge, huge community through Xbox, through PC, through etc., that are using the Xbox online gaming facilities, let's call them. But if you start looking at those, there's 120 million monthly active users as of December 2022. Again, just pulling up some stats really quickly. But that's a big audience, right, to play with?
Well, they're gonna get it right, obviously, because they don't want to lose that awesome market share that they can just capture very quickly. Imagine if you come out of the gate with an awesome device, and right away you have 150 million users right there and then, like right away out of the gates. Okay, well, you're very well ahead of the race. So
100%.
yeah.
And again, like this is just getting better and better, right? So there's I don't know if you saw this. There's a video game that came out recently. Sorry, that was announced recently, and it looks photorealistic. Did you see that one? So it's using Unreal 5. So Unreal Engine 5. I'll drop the clip down below afterwards. And they've released this that people actually immediately called out the developer on Twitter and said, "This is fake, right? You've just filmed this using a body cam." So the guy actually pulled it all together.
Yeah. I saw that actually.
Right?
Yeah.
So he then showed manipulating this environment in Unreal Engine.
Yeah.
And that's the moment where I clicked and went, oh my God, like the next phase. You're talking about AAA games where games look very good, to going to, I don't know, quadruple A games where it's realistic to the point of being a simulation.
To be honest, I didn't believe it. I looked at that, and it really looked like just someone just strapped a body cam and went into like like some ghetto and play guns. I don't know. It just felt so real and kind of impossible to do it today with the tech, but the tech is there. So yeah, that was definitely beautiful to watch. Put the link below so our auditors can have a look at that if they haven't seen it already.
Absolutely. I will add that there. And I think that's, again, probably a great place to call it for today. But there are some monumental shifts happening right now. I think we have to, again, our premise of this show, we don't bash anybody. But if Microsoft are building out something, if Apple is releasing a headset, if there are game developers now making things that are so photorealistic that it's hard to tell, all of this sort of screams, there's a direction here that could play out, and the VR could play a massive part of it, AR as well. But this is a really interesting space and the time to be looking at this space, I think, more than anything else.
Absolutely. I agree with you. And I think that will give us more legs than for more episodes, because I'm really, as you said, this is a great time to live into this tech, and we're going to be witnessing incredible things here.
Also, just to let everybody know before we wrap up as well, we have just acquired a newsletter, but for us it's going to be brand new, but we've acquired a newsletter that's all about the metaverse. It's going to be a weekly newsletter that we're going to be pushing out. If you'd like to sign up to that, please check out the link down below, or you can find it on all about the metaverse.xyz. Oh, too many names that are the same. And then you'll be able to find all that latest news. We'll also be covering some of the greatest stories that we see during the week, and you'll be able to get access to that. So feel free to have a look. Link down below in the comments. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please do hit that subscribe button as well. It means a lot to us, and it shows us that we should continue making these episodes.
Oh, for sure.
Because obviously we enjoy it. If you're listening, that
so
means
much.
somebody's enjoying it. And we can continue to build from there. Alexis, thank you so much, and
Thank you,
take care,
Chris.
everybody.
Wonderful. Goodbye, everybody. Bye-bye.